Well, I'm out here in my backyard and I'm seeing Venus bright. Next to it's Mars almost, and not going to see the moon because the moon's only 1 day old. And I'm going to tell you all about that. Hi, everybody. I am Stargazer Mark here as we do backyard astronomy on a Stay Star Curious here at the American Space Museum in downtown Titusville, where for over 20 years we've been preserving the birth of America's space age in its delivery room, Brevard County. So I got some fancy streaks here behind me. Wonder if you can figure out what those are. But we'll tell you here in a little bit as my co-producer Marty Winkle and I kick off another week of Stay Curious. Hey Marty, how you doing this is the last few days of spring 2023.
I'm doing good, Mark. How are you?
Well, I'm doing good. I've been little bit under the weather with the cold, but summer is coming around the corner, and I had a good Father's Day. Hope you did, Marty, and hope everybody out there enjoyed Father's Day with their family. We got a program today. We're going to talk about satellite launches and how astronomers are dealing with the light pollution that they're creating, aka these Starlinks behind me there. And then we're going to talk about sunspots on the sun right now, but don't look at the sun through binoculars or any kind of optical instrument. That's our disclaimer. But the sun is covered with spots today, Marty, and it's just one of those things people don't think about, but it affects you in many ways and could throughout this sunspot cycle that's going on. We're going to talk about Asteroid Day, June 30th, and I'm going to teach you how to talk a little bit like an amateur astronomer. Like if I say the moon is 17 days old, where is it in the sky? Well, you're going to figure that out here in just a little bit as you stay curious. And we're going to end it with giving you the little times of summer solstice and how much daylight we have over the winter solstice that happened 6 months ago. So we're glad that Joel Jacobs is watching. I know William Whiting's watching. Thank you, William. Lynn McDaniels up in Tampa, she's watching us. And Maurice Kozłowski, happy birthday to you, sir. He's in Moc, Poland. He's a faithful watcher of Stay Curious. And your birthday was yesterday, Mr. Moritz Kawazinski is how I'm going to say it. Kawazinski, okay, there in Moritz, Poland. He's always watching Stay Curious. So, Marty, let's kick it off here with an image there to just brag a moment that I am going to do here we go. Hit the wrong button there. Let's go back one. Go back two. Let's do it. Astronomy on Tap Orlando has welcomed me as a presenter tomorrow night from 7 to 9 at the Oviedo Brewing Company in Oviedo, Florida. So I'll be hightailing out of here, Marty, right after Stay Curious for that hour drive up there and do a little bit of my astronomical parody and talk about the American Space Museum up there for a group. But Astronomy on Tap is all over our country. Major cities have these events where nerds like me talk about their science that they're doing, or could be an amateur astronomer like myself talking about observation, the sunspots, or something outside the box like Starry Night Live that I've done for over 30 years to astronomy gatherings all over the country. And we know that you're going to want to make sure that you watch Wednesday, as that's right, Mr. W.O. Brown, who is 100 years old, June 12th. Talked to W.O. today. He's a very lucid man for his age. Just stopped driving last year, but he was a Chrysler Chief Systems Engineer. And he has got some stories to tell about the Juno rocket that put America's first satellite in space and what he had to do with that. Apollo, Skylab, and ASTP was worked on. And you're going to be fascinated by this gentleman, the stories he tells, not just the fact that he's a century old, but he has got one incredible story to tell about his role in the Cuban Missile Crisis when there was a nuclear showdown between America and Russia in Cuba. And W.O. Brown has got a story you're not going to believe how he was involved in that. So stay tuned. I can't wait to have him in here. I've met him many times. He's been to some of our events and lost his phone number, and he was really glad that Rosella Hanson, thank you for calling me and giving me W.O.'s Brown's phone number there. You're going to enjoy this special guest Wednesday on Stay Curious. And we want to talk about the 50th anniversary of Skylab. The first crew is finishing up. I think they're on day 26 right now. They're 28 days. Yep, I got my button on here, my Skylab button for the crew there of Pete Conrad, Joe Kerwin, and Weitz. And Joe Kerwin's 91 years old, I believe. We saw him, Marty, at the Astronaut Hall of Fame. But there's my Skylab button there, my Space Hipsters on my little astronomy vest here today. That is a famous artist, of course. You cartoon lovers know that is Johnny Hart, who allowed NASA to popularize his Wizard of Id cartoon on some of the safety stickers that were disseminated among Kennedy Space Center workers 50 years ago. That's a 1970 syndicated Skylab there. And of course in 1973 was the first mission. All right, so we're going to get the WO Skylab, and what a beautiful photograph. Thank you, Carlton Bailey, ASM partner. He's out on the Cape Canaveral Causeway, Marty. You probably know where he's standing on that causeway, maybe, that you've been out there now with your pass. But a beautiful shot of the full spectrum of Launch Complex 40 out there. It launched some Israeli satellite, not Israeli, Indonesian satellite, but it reminds me, of course, of the Starlink satellites that SpaceX is launching in batches of 50 to 25. The 25 are the new, improved, bigger ones. Though this was a single satellite, we're going to talk a minute about how those Starlink satellites and any constellation of satellites can really upset amateur astronomers. Photography and professional astronomers is more important, okay? Pencil thin streaks in a Hubble telescope image have the potential to eclipse crucial data, like in this picture, or they might ruin an entire observing run. The telescope is not cheap to run. Many of these telescopes are on top of South American mountains, where the Ohio State University, for example, is paying $100,000 for a weekend stay of their 3 astronomers that are doing some data there. But when you're photobombed, it costs taxpayers money that in these financing these astronomers sometimes. So what do they do when a satellite streak appears? Well, thank you, our IT guy, Bruce Jacobs, for sending me this story. They, of course, have found ways to eliminate them with algorithms in computer programming. And here is a photobomb of what we call the mice galaxy. It looks like 2 mice running around there at the tails, and a Hubble telescope raw image there. So astronomers have had to work out a masking routine that identifies the bad pixels and eliminates them. And then an observatory in Chile, for example, fears that at least 30% of their telescope observations are affected by telescope streaks. 30% of them. And here are these Starlink satellites. The new version is a little bigger and has 2 solar panels, but they're now blackening. What reflects is the solar panel themselves, as well as the bright areas of the satellite. What they call the bus of the satellite is the main frame where they put everything on. So they're painting these buses and trying to make the satellites and satellites and satellite parts, including the antennas, in non-reflective materials to dampen it somewhat. But it's challenging because telescopes are being built to observe the faintest things in the night sky, and when you have these bright lights come up, it just ruins everything. So satellite streaks are going to be here to stay, as this is a 30-second time exposure of some Starlink satellites. You see this about the first 3 days after they're launched, and then they spread out more around a constellation around the globe, like I showed you earlier. It's a good thing that SpaceX is doing to get remote areas some coverage for telephone and computers and such, emergency situations. and other companies are involved in these constellations. I believe there's 5,000 now Starlinks up, and Elon Musk's SpaceX has a contract and permission to put up 30,000. So when the Vera Rubin telescope in Chile fears that 30% of their observations are being lost by these streaks going through, that's something to take note of, all right? But they're doing workarounds. As long as they can get good data of where these satellites are, they won't schedule their observations where the satellite can pass in front of the telescope's focus. So here's from the International Space Station where they identify those dots there, and it's telling you that those are Starlink satellites after launch. And here is another degraded image from a very serious telescope, finding that these telescopes take exposures on the order of a half hour to hours, or they take 5 to 10 minute exposures and take repeated exposures of that to stack 10-minute exposures is like 100 seconds of exposure, okay, or a minute and a half. So there are all kinds of tricks in the trade, but Starlink satellites and all these constellations are wreaking havoc on astronomers and making them think in different ways of when and how they can take their photography, Marty. And there's another backyard buddy of mine up there in India Atlantic, Mark Poole. He had this one compromised in 2020 by Starlink satellites, the famous Orion Nebula. And once you get your telescope set up to make those pinpoint tracking, where you get the stars just pinpoint, and then you want to take, 2 to 5 minute exposures, and like I said, many of them, to then stack them in a computer program, it just ruins your night of stargazing, and the next 5-6 nights might be cloudy. And so you never know when your opportunity is. So, well, with that, we're just going to hope that the Starlink satellites and all those constellations find ways to work out with the amateur and professional astronomers as they dig deeper into solving the mysteries of our universe with this important data. Well, Marty, our favorite star, of course, is the sun. And this is the sun today, all right, June 19th, 2023. If you could see it through a proper solar filter or a telescope that is equipped with a solar filter, you would see the sun like this today. Some pretty big star spots there. And that's what they are. Our sun is just a star. Now, I want to point out a couple things here. The sun is 800,000 miles across. So let's call that 1,000,000 miles across, all right? So if it's 1,000,000 miles across, it's a 3D object, Marty. So the center of the moon, of the sun, all right, is 240,000 miles closer to the Earth than the sides are. Right, 240,000 miles doesn't seem like a lot, but it actually makes the center of the sun brighter, and you experience limb darkening on the edges there, okay? Because it's the inverse square law of light, all right? You move light. If a light is a value 1 at 10 feet, when you move that source of light to 20 feet, you think that value 1 would be half, because you've moved twice the distance, but it is 1/4 as bright, all right, once you double the distance. So easily brightness drops off on the surface of objects, and the sun is 250,000 miles closer right in the middle, and you see it's brighter than the edges that are 250,000 miles further on the sides. That's why the sun rotates in about 30 days. You can watch one sunspot. It'll take about 30 days to come around if it stays stable. All right. So when you got the sides of the sun, you're not seeing 15 full days of sunspots. You're only actually seeing about 12. You can't see them on the sides so much as they're coming around the edge. Sun is a star, very humble star. It's actually kind of a small star compared to the stars in our night sky. And here are the names of those sunspots. Astronomers number them. We are in the midst of the peak of a 11-year solar cycle. I'll talk about here in a minute. Now, this is a special effect here. I said the limb darkening makes the sun brighter in the middle, and this is a reverse thing here to emphasize the numbers and the spots there. So there's a lot of great people in our Brevard Astronomical Society, like John Small, and we've got Steve Rissmiller. They're out there constantly photographing the sun and the prominence or the flames on the edges and the features on it. It's quite fascinating, and you don't have to lose any sleep to do that. A lot of good solar astronomy being done with amateur astronomers today. So what is a sunspot? It's a cool area of the sun that's created by magnetic lines jumping off the sun, twisting, meeting each other, and going back to the surface of that 6,000 degree sun. All right. Sunspots are actually cooler. Now that's 5,800 degrees Kelvin, and that's about 6,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And there's the convection cells underneath the sun. They're constantly moving. It's boiling like oatmeal when you look at the surface. Kind of looks like boiling oatmeal. And this sunspot pair, they appear dark because they are cooler. And these magnetic lines erupt and can throw out things from the sunspots, all right, into the solar environment and roar past Mercury and Venus and Earth and Mars. But the planets that have magnetic fields like the Earth, the particles of the sun are magnetically drawn in, and this plasma friction burns it up in our atmosphere as aurora borealis, or at Antarctica it's aurora australis. There's a mighty, mighty sunspot. Look at that, 3 times or 4 times the diameter of our Earth, which of course is 7,921 miles across. So this is about a 32,000 distance on that. See the oatmeal kind of granulation of this? And go to YouTube and do solar telescope views or something like that, and you'll get a good idea of the boiling of the sun. So there is a known 11-year cycle that we've known for several hundred years. The sun has a cycle where there's no sunspots. All right, 5 years ago, you couldn't find a sunspot for a $100 bill. Today, I wouldn't offer you $1 to find one because you'll always find them during this peak. And this is a composite of all the sunspots that were on the sun during the month of May and how they rotated across. They seem to be at the latitudes, the same type of latitude. You don't see them around the equator or up at the poles. That's another mystery of our slowly turning ball of hydrogen that's fusioning into helium. And there is over the timeline there of the ups and downs of this 11-year cycle. We're on an upsweep of this, and what could happen, Marty, and I predict will happen, is one day cable TV might be broke down in some country, if not America. About 20 years ago, I think Montreal had a big power outage from solar flares that eventually they take about 2.5 days to reach the Earth. And when they hit the Earth, there was such electromagnetism in it that it melted down electrical grid stations in power grids in Canada. That is a reality that could happen, folks. Although one day your cell phone just might not work because there's so much ionization in the atmosphere that the towers can't communicate with your phone. So we'll see if it happens or not, but I predict we'll have some outages caused by the solar cycle in the next 2 or 3 years as it is ramping up for a good 2-year peak. Well, once again, do not look at the sun without the proper equipment, okay? Solar glasses that you have left over from the Great American Eclipse 5 years ago, those will do, okay? Make sure you don't have any holes in them. But do never, ever look at the sun with binoculars or any kind of optical instrument. And amateur astronomers know how to look at it safely. If you don't, read up on it. There's things that you can buy to cover your telescope, or you can project that image onto a piece of paper. But that's pretty dangerous because you're like a magnifying glass on that sun, and it could burn up the insides of your telescope. So take caution, but when the sun is setting on some evening and you're going to look at it easily with your naked eye, once it gets about 10 degrees below the horizon, above the horizon, then the Earth's atmosphere is thick enough that you don't see anything. But you'll see sunspots on the sun. In fact, I love looking at movies and advertisement that use the sun and see if there's any sunspots on them. And you could probably tell exactly what spot it is and tell what day that was filmed there. I know amateur astronomers have good ways of doing that. Well, let's go from the sun to something orbiting the sun that could cause us big trouble, Marty. It is not if, it is when will an asteroid hit the Earth that could possibly wipe out humanity. I'm not going to say when humanity be wiped out, but it could. After all, that's the legacy of the dinosaurs 65 million years ago, when something about 10 miles in diameter, all right, hit the Yucatan Peninsula in the Gulf of Mexico, and that was good night to the millions of years that dinosaurs roamed this earth, all right? Hard to believe, but Asteroid Day is held June 30th each year to mark the date of Earth's largest asteroid impact in recorded history, the Siberia Tunguska event. That's, of course, the one that's recorded in history, all right? We didn't record that one. We found it millions of years later, at least we think, where that asteroid killer was. Well, Siberia Tunguska is probably a comet that the impact of it didn't hit the ground. All of that force being pushed ahead of it blew up the ground in Siberia, and hundreds of miles of acreage of trees were laid flat. All right. Well, this day, to celebrate Asteroid Day and make an awareness of it, not celebrate, but make people aware that there are thousands of potentially hazardous asteroids. I'm going to blow your mind with how many here in just a minute that could hit the Earth. Every month almost now in the news is a small asteroid the size of a football field went between the orbit of the Earth and Moon. All right. In fact, I counted 7 asteroids that came between the Earth and the Moon just the last 2 months. All right. We'll see that on a chart here. So, famed rock group guitarist of the rock group Queen, Brian May, Dr. Brian May, astronaut Rusty Schweiker, Marty, you've met Rusty many times, filmmaker Greg Richters, and Danica Remy, who's the B612 president. They created Asteroid Day 8 years ago to educate the public about these rogue pieces of space rock that could hit us and maybe destroy a city, create havoc, completely reconfigure some coastal someday. So Asteroid Day Festival will be Saturday, July 1st, and this is going to be in Transchap, Luxembourg, okay? Asteroid Day is officially June 30th. It begins in Luxembourg. It'll be live streamed on several digital platforms. This event is recognized by the United Nations and as part of the Luxembourg-based Asteroid Foundation. The foundation aims to inspire the world about space and asteroids, and it focuses on asteroids' role in the formation of our solar system, the use of space resources, space exploration, and ways to protect our planet from asteroids that could hit us. And we just had an experiment that happily proved that we can deflect an asteroid if we need to. That was DART, okay, the Defense Asteroid Mission. We've got Lucy is on the way to asteroids that are in the orbit of Jupiter called Trojan asteroids. We've got OSIRIS-REx is coming back with pieces of a asteroid. And then Psyche is a mission that will investigate a metal asteroid, all right? And Marty, they find gold, silver, or diamonds on any asteroid. You're going to see all these space companies assemble to go harvest that. Of course, man, if they brought back like a 2-mile chunk of gold, that would probably bring the price down if they ever got it here on Earth, don't you think? Brian May says, the more we learn about asteroid impacts, the clearer it becomes that the human race has been living on borrowed time. All right. There is the Tunguska artist impact. It didn't create a crater, so they think that the crater was an area of knocked down trees and scrub, just kind of burnt a big circle. So they think it was something, maybe even a comet, that they'll go 30,000 miles an hour. That's pushing a lot of air and energy ahead of it, that there's a lot of energy to release there. And whoa, who we got there? We got Chris Calley in the middle with Charlie Duke, Moonwalker. They've got nothing to do with Asteroid Day, but Brian May on the left does there. And David Eicher, the astronomy editor for over 30 years, Astronomy Magazine. You can find that at most box stores, magazine rack. They certainly are going to be talking about Astronomy Day. And there's Brian May. And just wanted to say, surprise, Chris. Good to see you out there, and hope you're feeling good up there in Connecticut. And, of course, Charlie Duke, one of 4 moonwalkers alive. Marty spent a little bit of time with him, and he's just a fabulous, warm, and giving person, isn't he, Marty? And Marty's saying, yep, he sure is. Well, Brian May, again, we're living on borrowed time, maybe. And the Asteroid Day and the 100X Declaration are ways that the public to contribute to the awareness of Earth's vulnerability and the realization that asteroids hit Earth and other celestial bodies in the solar system all the time. We're talking about, let's see here. Let me put that down. Oh yeah, let's bring that back up there. Here are near-Earth asteroids. At this very moment, 2,335 potentially hazardous asteroids are orbiting the sun. 2,000, Marty. 2,335 to be exact. In that one column there that says miles distance, that LD is lunar diameter. So 0.7 lunar diameter, that's 7/10 the weight of the moon. Okay, lunar distance, I mean. And then you've got one on scanning in there. There's a real close one there on June 14th. Was 6 lunar distances. It's 10 meters across. There you have the diameter on the right. So this is published every day on spaceweather.com, my favorite website, and recent and upcoming Earth encounter asteroids. So some are way beyond the moon, but then there's, like I'm talking, there's 3 in this month that have darted inside the orbit of the Earth and the moon. Now, science and physics is such, we can predict within the foot where these are supposed to be by the gravitational influences of the moon and the Earth on them. But maybe we could be wrong, and that thing just do a left hook like a golfer does and slam right into the Earth someday. So, early warning, Rusty Schweiker, Apollo 9 astronaut and founder of the Association of Space Explorers and former chair of the Asteroid Expert Panel, says, early warning is essential ingredient of planetary defense. Asteroid Day would be the vehicle to garner public support to increase our knowledge of when asteroids might strike and how we can protect ourselves, all right? And I mentioned Brian May was talking about the 100 plus times declaration. Well, it's an awareness of asteroids that are 100 times, up to 100 times bigger than the one at Tunguska that they think was about 30 feet across. And look at the people. Actor Ashton Kutcher. There's Brian as the upper left. Brian May at the bottom right. Malika Balaki, I can't say her name. She's hosting Jeopardy now. 2 astronauts there. Chris Hadfield, and we met Steve Smith before. Jack Black, an actor there. And a couple other entertainers there, as well as a European astronaut. Whoopi Goldberg are among the 200 and some people that have signed that we must be aware of ways to contribute to people knowing that Earth is vulnerable to this. So, well, and I hope that Mark Usiak, that you are planning to attend International Asteroid Day at NASA's Flight Facility Visitor Center there in Wallops Island, Virginia. After all, asteroids are rocky remnants left over from the early formation of our solar system nearly 5 billion years ago. And they're going to focus on the asteroid missions of Lucy, OSIRIS-REx, Psyche, and DART, and explore how asteroid impacts have not only influenced the topography of Earth, but also life on Earth. So, and they're going to be talking about the Chesapeake Bay Impact Crater, which is one of the largest in the United States there. So, Asteroid Day. June 30th, and we'll be talking more about this as y'all want to stay curious. Well, going to help y'all learn how to talk a little bit of astronomy out there, Dave Stange and Doug Forrest. When I say the moon is 16 days old, where is it going to be in this night sky, huh? Well, I happen to know that it'll probably rise about 2 hours after sunset, because a 16-day moon is just 2 days after the full moon. So think of it this way there, Robert Law up in Dundee, Scotland, and Christopher Mick knows this, of course, very well. Christopher Mick knows, because he's a solar system ambassador in Hudson, Wisconsin. Christopher Mick, if I say the moon is 26 days old, where are you going to see it in the sky? And he knows you're going to have to get up early in the morning, because it's going to be a thin crescent before sunrise. So Gary Gerald's interested about this. Cynthia Rossi, Space Monkeys watching, and Lisa Porta's watching. There's Marlies, our birthday boy yesterday, Krasinski there in Poland. Alex Mandis is watching. Daniel DeYoung, he's not flying to friendly skies today. And thank you for sharing that picture of you and rock star Brian May there, Chris Callie. Well, here's how it works, folks. As 28 days is basically the lunar cycle, 28 and a half days. Month means mons, means moon, okay? So this shows you, right now the moon is 1 day old. You won't see it because it's such a thin crescent, 0 being new moon. But the 2-day-old moon you might see tomorrow is a thin crescent, but I know you're going to see the 4-day-old moon because it's going to be up there near Venus and Mars. All right. 7 days is first quarter. 14 days is full moon. 21 days is third quarter or last quarter. And 28 days is new. So 0 to 7, of course, is first quarter. All right. That's a quarter of the way around the Earth. So that's how to think about it. And then, like I said, if I said the moon was 21 days old, it would be just last quarter. All right. And you would be driving into work and you see it high up in that blue sky and say, oh, there's the moon up there. So now you can talk like an amateur astronomer, Marty. So if I say the moon is 13 days old, I'm not going to stargaze tonight because there's too much moonlight. The moon's going to rise about when it sets, just before full moon, 13 days old. There'll be too much light out there to see the Orion Nebula or the Crab Nebula like I love seeing. So now you know how to talk like an amateur astronomer. Well, Marty, this is, of course, the famous Stonehenge, and Thursday there'll be a scene like this there as people are waiting to see the sunrise on the summer solstice. The sun arrives sometime Wednesday. I'll tell you here in just a minute. And, well, let's look at that slide there. What a difference a solstice makes. The winter solstice, December 21st, 6 months ago, saw sunrise at 7:12 and sunset at 5:31 with 10 hours of daylight. We have almost 4 hours of daylight more 6 months later. Golfers, tennis players, gardeners all love that. Some of you morning people don't like that so much because you like your daylight in the morning like you get in the wintertime. But sunrise on June 21st, when the summer solstice is exactly at 10:57 a.m., that means that the sun will be over the Tropic of Cancer, all right, directly overhead and there, and that means that the hot rays of the sun are hitting the earth as I hold my globe here, my grade school globe, to show you here underneath our green screen. You all know you've seen the earth tilted at 24.5 degrees all your life on that school teacher's desk. That causes our seasons because when we're on one side of the sun, in the wintertime, we're tilted away. All right, so the indirect light is hitting us of the sun, not as bright. But in Australia, they're hitting the direct rays. And then 6 months later in the summertime, we're the ones that are leaning into the sun, all right, in our direction because the tilt of the earth. Of course, we rotate around, but that tilt still stays the same. So love that effect there, Marty. Woohoo! So it's just like this, folks. You don't get a suntan at 10 to 11 in the morning, all right? Nor do you get it from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock at night. The sun's rays aren't bright. You can't feel the heat on your sun, on your face. But from 11 to 3 o'clock, you feel that heat because the sun's higher up and the rays are straight down, and straight rays are hot, tilted rays are cold or cooler. That's why we can see the sun through the atmosphere when it's setting and check out a sunspot or so on there. So now you know how to talk like an astronomer with how old the moon is. All right, it's 1 day old today. That's just a thin crescent. You can see it about 3 days old. Okay, and now you know a little bit about. Well, boy, we're going to have all that sunlight coming on today. So, well, hope that you get a chance, those of you local, to come up to Oviedo and have a cocktail with us, adult beverage or such, and enjoy some fun with some astronomers up there. And we know that you do not want to miss seeing W.O. Brown, 100 years old. I guess he'll be our oldest guest on Stay Curious, Marty, unless you're lying to me.
No, I didn't make 100 yet.
You don't even look 70, my friend. So, all right, everybody, we appreciate you all staying curious with us today as we've kicked off our another week of Stay Curious programming. So we'll put some stuff up of what the future shows are, but we certainly enjoy you sticking around with us all this time to learn a little bit about stargazing from your backyard. So get out there. The moon is not bright, so you can go out there and see all kinds of things. So I'm going to get my red flashlight on, get my star map so I can read my red flashlight. Until then, I'm Marquette saying I can't wait to see you again to bridge the space between us. Oh, Vetus is so bright.